Thank you very much, and welcome those of you at home to the third session of the Essential Magic Conference. They think of everything here. It's my birthday. Jello shots. Nice, huh? They think of almost everything. The sign back there said session 2, but this is actually session 3. Interestingly, though, they are racing around backstage getting things done, and right now, session 2 is online for your viewing pleasure already. It's up that fast. Pretty amazing, huh? Quick Jello shot. Only 44 more to go. I thought there was one for everyone here, and they said, no, there's 45 for you, one for each year of your birthday. So by midnight, I should be looking more and more like JJ and Chris. I'm glad that you're here, and I'm glad that I get to introduce this lineup of people, some of my good friends, some people that I've known for years and years and years and that I really respect and admire. And I don't think there's any better way to lead things off than to introduce Apollo Robbins. Could we roll that video, please?
There is a thief sitting among you, but lucky for you, he's a gentleman. For your own safety, please watch the following video.
How many think that they could never be conned?
Please welcome the stars from the True TV hit show.
Our next guest may change your mind.
Please welcome Apollo Robbins.
As the flight mark bends over to help, Apollo is able to slide the money out completely unnoticed.
Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the gentleman thief, Apollo Robbins.
You know, it's a fascinating area, the idea of misdirection and how it applies to magic. I'm often asked, how do you steal things? How do you get in people's pockets? How do you take advantage of their attention? Well, the term misdirection, I believe, is a bit of an assumption that you already have their attention. And getting their attention can be especially hard in these days. Because with cell phones, with text messaging, there's a lot of tug-of-war between your audience and the attention. I'd like to take this opportunity, the little time I have with you, to show you a couple ways and tricks about how to get their attention. Now, for myself, when I'm trying to steal from someone, I like to think of it kind of like hunting rabbits. If you see them where their attention is, it's almost like a cat. When they're just looking at their attention, they're trying to figure out, how do I get into that? As they approach them, you'll notice that their attention changes. The idea of being inside the rabbit's head is often referred to by psychologists as the theory of mind. They have an experiment they call the Sally Ann experiment that I think kind of explains that. There is a story of these two girls that were playing in a classroom, Sally and Ann. Sally has a doll she puts inside of a box. She goes outside to the playground and she leaves. While she's gone, Ann reaches inside the box, takes the doll out, puts it in the closet. The question is, for the kids that they give this test to, when Sally comes back, where is she going to think the doll is? Is she going to think it's in the box or in the closet? Now, most of the kids that were asked these questions, as well as certain autistic individuals, found that they thought that she would think the doll was in the closet because they couldn't separate their knowledge from Ann's knowledge. And that's an interesting quandary. I think for us, as magicians, we have to be able to separate our knowledge from our audience's knowledge. And we have to know where their attention is and kind of be inside of that state of mind. I'd like to give you a couple of tips on how you can do that. There is an idea of attention being kind of like marketing, pull versus push. For myself, if you look me up online, you won't find a web address, you won't find a phone number. Instead, what you'll find is just information like the video you saw. And I have to apologize, it seems kind of immodest opening that with that video, but I'd like to show you how I solved a problem that I found myself in where it was rather tense, and this video was kind of a solution that evolved from that. Now, inside of an environment of using marketing, pull versus push, one way of approaching it. Push marketing is kind of like a campaign that you'd send out. You say, look at me, focus on me here. Versus pull is this kind of a seduction, kind of pulling people to look for you. For me, if you Googled me, you called my agent, you'd have to track me down. By the time you track me down and you get a hold of me, it would be a very qualified buyer. But it means I do lose some work, and it's part of that. You do the same thing when you're performing, or kind of like when you're picking up on a woman. The idea of, instead of being a pickup artist, how do you catch their attention? So telemarketers, spam mail, these types of things, they take your attention. They basically steal it, because they're taking your attention without giving you something in exchange. If you think of that like a blinking banner that you might see on your website right now, or right now you have a choice between looking at the chat room or looking at me back and forth, and your attention will bounce back and forth. The same thing happens in magic when we say, look, look, watch, let me show you this. It's kind of like spam. It's attentional spam, because you're asking them to give something to you that you don't necessarily are giving them anything in exchange. You have to have that trade back. So a way that you can approach that differently is to try to seduce them. That's okay. Actually, here, inside this environment, it's very quiet. So the mindset of everybody watching is coming from a different place. So whenever you hear something in the background, like laughter or the lights, it's always something that will naturally catch your attention. Psychologists call this bottom-up attention. It's something that jerks off your attention to a side, and that's one way. Or you can choose to give your attention to something. So that point, I think, is actually very relevant. If you can get them to choose to give their attention to you, it's much more interesting. But how do you do that? Well, you can even get them to chase you. I'd like to give you an example. When I'm working inside of a cocktail party, I have a choice of trying to focus on a couple of individuals, say 2 or 3 people that I'm trying to get their attention, or I can try to play to a bigger group. Now, I want to look for like a social hierarchy. I'll look for somebody who's rather important inside that group. Something that everybody would like to talk to, like an executive, a VIP. Let's call him George Tovar. So George Tovar is an important VIP, somebody who is rather postured in the community. I will look to identify where he is, then I'll walk around and I'll tap several people on the shoulder, and I'll say to them, watch what's about to happen to George. Watch what's about to happen to George. I continue doing this in about a 50-foot radius around where George is. Then I go up and I do something. In my case, it's pickpocketing. I introduce myself to George, I do a demonstration for him, I'm stealing. But the reaction I get is much larger now. Instead of just being in one focused spot, I've got a bigger, broad reaction to that. What this allows me to do now is, instead of going up individually and introducing myself multiple times as I work, it allows me to be kind of competed for. I have the attention of a lot of people at one time. So they're pulling me from place to place and trying to get me to go, because they've already seen me. They've seen me in this environment. They've been passively introduced to me by watching me from a distance. So this same thing right now, when you watch a situation, everybody receives it differently, from a different perspective. The cameraman, he has a certain goal. He wants to try to keep me in focus, try to keep me out of the light as I walk straight into the camera. Otherwise, he'll lose the image. Same thing for the soundman. The soundman wants to try and make sure that any kind of background noise, an airplane flying by, doesn't there. But he's watching the same set that you are. And you, as you're watching, are trying to determine if I'm worth the value that you've invested in this talk. Or is this the time to go to the refrigerator? So if you can identify this combination between environment and purpose of why somebody is watching you, you can understand their focus. And then you can take advantage of that. But first, you have to have that attention. So inside of considering environments, I'd like to discuss a couple of those. Theaters, banquets, restaurants, trade shows, and street performing. Those are general environments that we find ourselves performing in quite often. The interesting idea is, when you're in a theater, you've just put yourself in an environment that is conducive to focus. The idea of a theater, with the stage, the lights, the sound, is that you're going to focus on one spot. And generally the people are there for the reason to see you. Much easier to have their complete attention. Banquets look very similar to a theater. You can make them look very identical with the stage, the lighting. The difficulty is the purpose of why the people are there. It could be they've just gone through their dinner, they've just gone through an awards ceremony, and now they want to go home, they want to go to their hotel room. But instead, their boss is making them watch this 45-minute mandatory show, and they're not sure why they're there. So how do you get them to prioritize you over hopping on their phone and text messaging? Texting is an interesting solution. an interesting problem. Because texting could be that they're tweeting, they're telling you positive things about you, or it could just mean that you're a lesser priority than what they have on the phone. And socially, it's become a different agreement now. It used to be that when you had a phone call during dinner, you apologize to your guests that you might have a phone call beforehand. Now it's become this, that you will text, and it's kind of like you saying, well, I'm trying to be more polite than using my cell phone in front of you. And they'll try to be discreet with doing this low language down there, but if you've noticed, cell phones are kind of like yawns. Once one person does it, everybody wants to just check their messages and see what's going on. So I don't believe that making an outward statement is a good way to distract from that. I think better yet is a good way of bringing that to the surface. So you might say to them something like, for myself, I take advantage of the stealing. So I would say to an audience, for the type of people that I'm working with, if I'm looking through here, I generally look for people that are focused on different types of attention. So, for instance, the lady there with her cell phone, if you hold that up, I know that she's focused on just a cell phone, so may I use you, ma'am? Now, by me doing that, all the other cell phones quickly go into their pockets, into their purses, because they take advantage of the environment. So that's a way that you can approach it, just by using the idea of the purpose that they're there. They don't want to be put into the limelight. Let's say restaurants, well, banquets, I mentioned their purpose. Restaurants, people are there for the purpose of having dinner. They're looking for a celebration. You have to find a way to break their pattern, to introduce yourself in a way that can be surprising. I'll sometimes use an approach where I walk up to a table pretending to be someone, and I'll bring a flower, and I may say to a larger table, if I want to interrupt and take advantage of this, but I want to passively pull them, so I don't want them to be aggravated with the approach. I may say to an older lady at the table, I may give her the rose and say, I'm sorry, gentleman at table 103, he ordered this for you. It's a gift. And they think I'm a manager delivering this. But what this lady now has done is capture the table. The rest of the people are doing side talk. They're saying, somebody's giving a flower for grandma. Who's that? When they all look back, they look at me. Who was it exactly? Who was it? I say, yes, it's the gentleman over there. He's wearing an orange tie, kind of a brown suit, and a brown pocket scarf. Oh, it looks like me. Hi, how are you? Nice to meet you. So what I've done is I've kind of lured them in and kind of given them a little bit of a game, and they realize the playfulness of it. And it is a ploy for their attention, but I've taken them on a little journey. And I'll usually release. I won't go straight into anything. I say, I'm part of your entertainment, but I'll take advantage of you later. I'll be back. And then I would leave and come back. But it is that give and take. It's like a salsa dance. You go in, you come back. If you put too much force towards pushing yourself, people's natural response is to resist. Now, the more captive audiences, the banquets, the restaurants where they're sitting at the table, the theaters, they have choices of where to go. But what about environments like a trade show where they're passing through, or street performing? It's harder then to capture their attention. And if you watch somebody who's really good at those, actually we have somebody here, Peter Wardell. He'll talk to you a lot about that with the street performing. If they can capture an audience, then that audience is truly interested and invested in what they're doing. And usually that's what's amazing when you see a street performer transition into the stage, because they have more of a control over the attention of their audience. They understand that dynamic. So it makes sense that you'd see somebody working in a trade show, they would know this, that applause can sometimes be polite. So if you want to get more attention, you can also generate laughter. So laughter, if you're around a corner in a trade show, will usually pique your attention more. And my guess is that's because you want to decide, would I laugh at that myself? And you want to be drawn to the source, and the laughter kind of piques your attention. Now, there's a million ways that you can analyze these. These are just speculations. But I think that some of this has credence. And I'll give you a couple examples of how I've taken this kind of pattern interrupts or breaking expectations or emotions and taken advantage of them in environments. I had a situation where I was working in a restaurant, and I wanted to dabble, I wanted to play with an emotion like anger. I wanted to do it with a mundane trick. It was just a challenge for myself, and it was the salt shaker through the table. It's an interesting sensation for the person who pushes down on the salt shaker, but not for the rest of the people. They're not engaged, just the person you're initially doing it to. But how can you get inside the minds of the rest of the people and make them invest so they're not on their phones texting? Actually, if you think about it, texting is kind of a barometer to see how well you're doing with keeping their attention. So for me, I use it as a ploy. So I performed. If I got a negative response from one of the gentlemen that I'm thinking of that this happened to, he took my cards and said, let me show you a trick. dribbled my cards on the table or on the floor and said, this is the 52 card pickup. So I picked up the cards, put them in my pocket, said, have a wonderful dinner, and I left. Again, I'm 19 at this time. When I came back, I had the salt shaker, I had a coin, I said, I have something special for you. See if you can do this. And I smack it, it seems to go through the table. I said, see if you can do this. And I challenge him, I kind of appeal to his ego a little bit. And he hits it, and he kind of placates me. But as I'm doing this, I wrap the napkin around it, and I steal out the salt shaker. But instead, when I steal it out, I flash it to the rest of the table except for him, and I switch it for another salt shaker that has nails soldered to the top of it, coming out. And I twist this inside the napkin. So it's now a different effect for him versus them. Because now they have this image of him impaling his hand in blood and flesh coming through the back. So when he started to slam his hand down again, I vanish it. It's the same effect to him, but for them, they're very engaged, and they're trying to stop him from doing the action. So it's, again, just an exercise of how do you get inside their mind? How do you get them engaged? So that was playing with emotion. Another approach I used was about 2 years ago. Eric Mead and myself were speaking before a conference. It was all neuroscientists. It was a different type of audience. And it was a very humbling experience. I worked for banquets. I worked for companies, usually after dinner functions. But this particular venue was 9,000 neuroscientists. Sounded like a number, but I haven't really processed it. I mean, it's nothing like a billion, like we were seeing with Lu Chen. But 9,000 was a big number for me. And I had to think, how am I going to captivate them? I don't have a dance team. I don't have illusions. I don't have that. I have what I do. I have the thinking that I have. But how am I going to get inside their head of 9,000 people? So I tried to use the environment. For me, the biggest prop that I could see was the spotlight. So I asked the show producer if we could set up certain choreography on stage left that every time the president appeared, the spotlight would go there. He'd walk on stage. Eric Mead would go there. He would go on stage. The spotlight started at the same spot each time. Eric Mead introduced me. The video came up, started to play. And then once he had introduced me, they see this video that you saw. That's why I want to give it to you as a frame of reference. They see all the stealing. They see those activities. Their pattern behavior switches over to the spotlight. They're looking on stage, but no one comes out. It's an interesting interruption of their pattern. And then it goes to voiceover. The room is dark, just the spotlight. And I say, you know, I love spotlights. They show you exactly where you're supposed to look. Well, the fantastic thing about him is if you know the spotlight operator. He's Bob. He's a friend of mine. For 20 bucks, it's amazing what I got him to do. I said, Bob, can we have a little bit of fun here in the middle of the audience? And I have him chase the audience and start to find me. In that moment, I was inside the head of most of those people because you could see them checking their pockets, checking their purses, and wondering where exactly was this guy that they just saw steal all these things inside this room. And that's why I wanted, just to be in their head for a minute, and now it's my job to keep their attention. But in that second that I did have them, I then stood up in the audience, they scattered a little bit where I was, and then I began, and I started my show. I hope that some of these examples, whether they may be too metaphorical or too vague, I hope that some of them show you how to get inside the mind of your audience and how to capture their attention. In the meantime, I thank you for the attention that you've given me. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Nicely done. Very well dressed, Apollo Robbins. It's 12 minutes, 14 minutes into the show. We need just a moment to reset something. And I should tell you that all of the gentlemen here, at least many of the gentlemen here in this room, are looking at your live chat. So please text in, type in your questions for the performers, for the lecturers, for the people you'll see here, and we will get to those at the end of the session. I know that you at home can see who's coming up, and you already know before I introduce them. There's no surprise in my introduction. But I do want to tell you a little bit about each one of them, and I'll never forget the first time that I saw this next gentleman. He was doing an act, a stage act with sunglasses and bells, and it was really clever, done to a Cars song, as I recall. Is that correct? And it was really clever and really good, and it was one of those things where I said, oh, I wish I would have thought of something like that. It's really huge stage, a couple of props that fit in his pocket. I've been a fan of his ever since. I can't wait to see what he's going to talk about and share with us. Please welcome Topaz.
I love manipulation. I started out doing sleight of hand magic, like many of us. Ideally, it looks like trick photography, and it works all over the world. Both laymen and magicians love it. But is it relatively meaningless? Just bubblegum for the eyes? Or let's put it this way, if we could really do magic, would we make colored little balls appear? I would like to discuss the essence of manipulation, what makes it good or bad, how we can come up with new manipulation magic, and finally, what the meaning of manipulation is, in my opinion. One great aspect of manipulation is the magic clearly comes from the performer, not the prop. It's organic. Like in mentalism, for an audience, the source of the illusion is the magician, not an object. And from Darofitsky, we know people are interested in people more than in any other thing. The difference between having a piece of interesting magic apparatus and doing manipulation is a little like having a good-looking car or looking good oneself. Darofitsky also gave us two great basic tools for defining manipulation, the terms simulation and dissimulation. Simulation is pretending to do something and not doing anything, like the hand that takes the object in a false transfer. Dissimulation is pretending not to do anything while something is secretly done, like the hand from which the object is seemingly taken in a false transfer. So this is simulation, and this is dissimulation. And next to each other, they don't make a lot of sense, only combined they work. If we want to improve simulation, we simply need to study pantomime. If we want to improve dissimulation, the objects have to become an extension of our body. We practice palming by constantly holding the object palmed with as little force as possible, by taking the palmed object into bed with us, and so on. I have. Good manipulation is based on movement principles. I would like to mention some of them very briefly. There is isolation, the idea that you move parts of your body without the rest moving. There is a big movement covers a small movement. And then there is some I found which are very helpful but maybe not so well known, like the hamstring hand theory. That is just the idea that your wrists are tied together and there's a string following your arm, crossing your shoulders, going down. So when one hand goes up, the other hand goes down. When one hand goes to the front, the other comes back. So when you need, for technical reasons, to drop the hand, it gives it a certain control, a certain choreography to think of this principle. There's a lot more. The secret move at a point of return. Maybe you've heard about this, the reverse secret movement, where for a steal, the body goes to the hand instead of the hand going to the body. There's economy, like the Buck brothers have mentioned. Skillful manipulation looks great. Mediocre manipulation is already unbearable. With manipulation, the illusion or magic effect is destroyed very easily. Only the precision of a master like Norm Nielsen or Amanda Lucero, to mention just a few of my favorites, can turn manipulation into magic at all. Therefore, obviously, manipulation needs very much practice. Our English professor at university told us, students, at the beginning, if you don't like to read, stop studying literature immediately. The same is true for manipulation. If you don't enjoy playful practicing, don't even start manipulation. Practice by repetition is imperative, of course. For controlling one's moves, different strategies have different problems. By using a mirror, the performer tends to close his eyes when he makes the secret move. You know, don't we see many manipulators close their eyes even in front of an audience? By using videotaping, only one angle, like this one now, is checked. The majority of the audience is neglected. So using 2 or 3 onlookers simultaneously to check manipulation is, I guess, the best possibility, maybe the only possibility. Viewing angles are generally the manipulator's worst enemy. Wonderful magic from one point of view can become nonsense from a different position. However, working with an angle manipulation technique carefully for a camera can then produce amazing results. Speed in manipulation is another ambiguous aspect. Fast manipulations might come across as virtuous and impressive, but it is reducing the importance of each individual effect drastically. As Di Vernon so famously said, confusion is not magic, and of course neither is juggling. I love this golden rule that an older magician once told me: illusions should be done fast, manipulation slow. It is important to keep manipulation up to date, I feel. It should not remain a rigid repetition of traditional moves and routines with cards and billiard balls only. Many manipulators have contributed new techniques to these traditional objects. Peter Marvey, Makatendo, and recently Anha Lin, just to name a few again, have created groundbreaking new moves with cards. Another way is to look for new manipulation objects, which will then lead to new effects and interesting techniques. Sometimes you even become known as the guy with, let's say, the mobile phones. The guy with the phones in the case of the Grand Prix winner Schoma from Hungary. Do you know Eberhard Riese? He is one of the greatest minds in magic. I thoroughly recommend his book Fundamente on how to create magic. In his book, Epps has put together a list of possible new manipulation items. This is a great trigger for original ideas. I would like to suggest a list of qualities a new manipulation object should have. It's very simple, but it might be helpful to evaluate new objects and exclude inconvenient ones early on. This is the list, if we can see the chart, please. There are two groups of 5 qualities. The first 5 are theatrical aspects, following the rules of objects on stage. The second 5 are magical aspects, according to the psychology of deception. The qualities of manipulation objects here, the theatrical ones are, the object has to be known, maybe popular. The surface has to be bright and opaque, if possible, so you can tell how many there are when they appear in between your fingers, for instance. It has to be valuable, fashionable, if possible, and a familiar size. If something is produced in the wrong proportion, it's just kitsch. The magical aspect, it would be great if it can change its surface or volume, if it can be folded in and out like playing cards, umbrellas, and the like. It's great if it can make a sound, if it can be worn or put on the body momentarily, which helped me, for instance, with the sunglass effects, that after it's appeared, I can put it on my face and then both hands are free again, and it has 3 points of attention. It's interesting to have something that is deteriorable, dangerous or difficult to handle, like ice, fire. So an audience knows this is difficult to keep on your body before and difficult to handle to begin with. And last but not least, if it's alive, it will never stop to amaze the audience when animals are manipulated. There is, of course, a discussion about that, but if we treat them like parents, it can make for some great magic. The way a manipulation object is treated after it's been produced symbolizes the value of the object to the performer. If the manipulator throws everything away quickly and carelessly as soon as it has appeared, it's obviously not worth anything. So why does he make it appear at all? And this brings me to my last question. What does manipulation mean? Does it mean anything at all? Or is it just a shallow and random series of effects? I don't think so. Magic becomes meaningful by expressing human desires. These desires are anthropological constants. This means people has always had and always will have these desires. Since relevant magic plays on human desires, it can never grow out of fashion. Here is another chart, forgive me for being so German about it, another chart of human desires and their reflections in magic. This is just a random and, of course, incomplete list, obviously, since the human condition is quite complex. But you will find a list of human desires like wealth, beauty, youth, and how we in the magic world can put this in a theatrical context. And last in this list, I put dexterity. And dexterity is attractive. Let's take an example from current popular culture. In the Hollywood blockbuster movie Mission Impossible, Tom Cruise manipulates a CD. Completely unnecessary for the plot, just to show the character's manipulation skills. In many other movies, the hero also displays sleight of hand abilities, but manipulation does not only show off dexterity, it has a deeper meaning, a symbolical message which makes it desirable. A manipulator shows us how to achieve amazing results elegantly and seemingly effortlessly by clever skills, talent, and trained abilities. It may be unreal, idealistic, maybe even larger than life, but certainly something to admire and strive for. Juan Tamariz, he's been quoted quite a bit at this EMC, has once said in an interview, "The painter imitates nature. The magician imitates God." This is not immodest or hybrid. It's a statement about the theatrical content of our art. But aren't there more relevant themes for magic than dexterities? You know, desires which cannot be reflected upon with sleight of hand effects. Again, if we could really do magic, would we make colored little balls appear? Pitt Hardling is a German magician, part of the Flicking Fingers team. He's a very intelligent and amazingly talented magician. He has answered this question best for me. He said, well, if I was a god and could really do magic, I would make colored balls appear. Gods also like to play. So my conclusion is, manipulation has profound meaning. It symbolizes winning in life playfully. The challenges of life become a child's play. So let me end this talk with a manipulation of toys. Music, please. Thank you very much.
Topaz, there he goes. You guys at home, clap, clap. That was Topaz. Yay. I didn't realize he was going to begin his talk with a little bit of the bell and sunglasses, and I felt like I, in a certain way, maybe it was foreshadowed it, maybe it was ruined it. I'm not sure. I got a brief preview of what our next guest is going to do, and I would like to both foreshadow and ruin it by describing, kidding. Please welcome Max Maven. I didn't realize
so much.
wasn't ready.
Please welcome the two gentlemen who've agreed to be the audience for this, the Buck Twins. Now, we're going to try something using a pack of cards, but in a way that's a little bit different from what you guys are used to. First of all, there'll be an effect. Now, one of you has brought a device for getting online, a smartphone, and so I'm going to put the deck of cards in front of you. Earlier I saw your talk, which I thought was great, and I was interested in your approach because you were talking about how you do minimalistic presentation, very little presentation because all the focus is on the moments of the effect. This routine is sort of the opposite. Lots of presentation, not much effect. But hopefully it'll take us somewhere interesting. All right? I'm not going to touch the deck of cards again. I don't have a big glass booth or straps to... You're just here to keep me honest, and I won't bother to touch the cards. We're going to play a game. Now, most of us know the classic card games. You've certainly heard of 5-card draw or 7-card stud. We're going to play 6-card Broadway. It's one you probably don't know, but it's an interesting game. It's an interesting game because if played properly, the game of 6-card Broadway is not only fascinating, but it can actually answer some pretty important questions. It can answer the meaning of life. It can answer the meaning of the universe and everything else. Not bad for a pack of 53 cards. Here's how the game works. Take the cards out of the case, please. No Sybil cuts. Now, instead, I will ask that you clear off the table. I will ask that you cut the deck into 2 groups and then turn either group face up and then shuffle the 2 groups together. Nicely done. Now, this was a neater shuffle, perhaps, than most spectators would be able to do, but we would expect nothing less from the Bucks. By the way, I'll point out, I know that a lot of folks watching, because I saw some of the chat earlier, they're not sure who's who, how to tell you guys apart. But, of course, I've had the chance of knowing you for a while, and you're up close, and I know you, so it's much easier for me to do that. So, Doug, now that you have shuffled the deck thoroughly, and Dennis, I'm coming up to you in a moment. What I want you to do is this. We're going to take the top 6 cards, but we can take the first 6 face-down cards, because remember, they're shuffled face up and face down, or we can take the first 6 face-up cards, or we can take the first 6 cards, whether they are face-up or face-down, just that happen to lie in the first 6 positions. Don't tell me which one you want to do, because you get one extra choice, which is, if you want, before we take those 6 cards, you can turn the entire shuffle deck over. So you're going to wind up choosing 6 cards from a deck that you yourself cut and shuffled, and you're about to tell us where and how we get those 6 cards. We will then add up the values, and that should lead us to a very interesting conclusion with cosmic implications. Okay? Dwayne, I'm going to get to you in a moment. Be ready to go online. Okay? Donald, if you would, which is it going to be? Face down, face up, or mix? Face up. Face up. The first 6 face-up cards. From this end, or do you want to turn the whole deck over? All right. Would you please take the first 6 face-up cards and just set them off to the side? That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cards. Fair? Put the rest of the deck aside. Now, the odds of drawing any specific set of 6 cards from a deck of 53, there are about 16.5 billion possibilities. But I don't want to mislead you. It's not quite that impossible, because we're only going for the values. Now, the lowest possible total you can get out of 6 cards from a deck of normal cards is a total of 6. That's if you have a joker counting a 0. And the largest total you can get is 76. That means there are 71 different possible totals. Let's find out what you've got. So that would be a deuce. If you slide it out, that means I don't have to touch the cards. Good. And a 6, which would be, so far so good. And a 9. 17. A queen would be a value of 12. 29, staying with the group, good. And an 8. 37. And a 5. 42. So the total you've arrived at is 42. And again, just to quickly recap, I haven't touched the cards. You cut them wherever you wanted. You shuffled them as cleanly or as not cleanly as you chose. You decided whether we would go with face up, face down, or a mix. And you also decided which end to go from. Under those circumstances, you picked 6 cards with a total of 42. I want you to go on to Google. Now, those of you who are watching this from home, if you have a browsing situation where you can actually tab over to Google right now, you can join in and do what I'm about to have Dexter do. Or you can try this later. It's your call. But I want you, are you on Google now? I want you to type in the following phrase. It's a question, okay? What is the answer to life, the universe, and everything? Enter if you would, and you should get a mathematical equation released from the calculator function built into Google. What does it say?
42.
It says quite specifically, the answer to life, the universe, and everything equals 42. And if you guys at home would like to try typing that into Google, you'll get the same results. No special wording or coding involved. The deck of cards is quite normal. It will go home with Derek. And I want to thank you both for your participation. I'll be explaining this later on. It will be posted onto the EMC website within the coming week. And you can all try this out on your friends once you know how.
Lovely, yes. Jello shots. Couple of, would you like one also? Happy birthday to me. Ah, yes. Max Maven. Excellent. So you all know our next guest as the publisher of Magic Magazine. What you may not know is that he spent a long time as a performer, most especially, as I recall, I'm not sure of this, we might ask him later, on cruise ships. And has a long, long list of credentials that are kind of unknown about him. He's a wonderful magician, an excellent publisher of a very fine magazine, and he's going to give us a number of things to think about for the next 20 minutes. Please welcome my friend, Stan Allen.
Thank you, Eric. How do I work? Here? Okay. Thank you. 33 things to think about in 20 minutes. That was the original concept of my talk at the 2010 EMC. As it turned out, I could only squeeze 22 things to think about into 20 minutes allocated, but that seemed just about right. Today, I'm going to share the 11 things I didn't get to a year ago, and 11 more, and 1 or 2 that I think might be worth repeating. So, counting last year, the total list is 44. Remember, I'm not saying these things by any means are gospel. In fact, I'm not even sure they're applicable to you. I'm just suggesting that these are some things that we, as magicians, might want to think about. All right, so in no particular order, let's start with number 17, a repeat from 2010. Our job description. Whether we're working on stage in a large theater or at an intimate table in a restaurant, our job is to help people have a good time. It's just that simple. We usually do this by performing our acts, but we should always keep in mind we're there to just help these people have a good time. And that, if that requires us to vary from our acts a bit, or to deal graciously with people who want to join the show, or play off some special situation, so be it. Help them have a good time, and in so doing, I think you'll have a pretty good time as well. Number 43. Which is somewhat related. Everybody is a star. Most everyone enjoys a little bit of the spotlight, and depending on the venue, you might be sharing that spotlight with other stars. Examples. On cruise ships, it's the officers who star at the captain's cocktail parties. or the waiters who star in the dining room. At a trade show, it's the company's message and the sales rep that are all important. At a private party, it's the guest of honor or maybe the host. Help others shine. Don't upstage these people by being on the whole time. I worked on cruise ships for 8 years, and I attended countless captain's cocktail parties, and never once did a trick off stage. Number 22. After they've been introduced, why is it that so many magicians wait until the wait until the applause has died down before walking on stage, and then expect more applause? I don't know. Why do so many illusionists complete the effect and then add 10 seconds of choreography over their applause before freezing for a bow and then expect more applause? I don't know. Which brings me to number 16. Applause is not always a good thing. Okay. You do not want a smattering of applause at random points in your act. It can be disruptive and hurt the flow and possibly the end result. Build solid applause cues into your performance and then find ways to cue the audience that it's time to clap. Here's a basic example. When I was a teenager, like most of us, I did kid shows, and I used a die box. There's a natural applause point when you open all the doors and show that the die is no longer in the box. But in a few seconds, you're going to have another applause point, and that's where the die comes out of the hat. Or in my case, a bag. Couldn't afford one of those collapsing hats. So how do you stop the audience from applauding on the vanish? Well, for me it was a word, and. Also, it was a hand gesture. I simply said, let me show you that the die is no longer on this side, it's no longer on this side, and that leaves only one place where the die could be. It's in the bag. Boom. Applause. Sometimes it's impossible to stop the applause. When the restored newspaper snaps open, the audience is going to respond. So you still have to open the pages showing that it's the actual newspaper that you tore up, which is a bit anticlimactic. I found that by adding a torn corner that accidentally falls to the floor during the tearing solves the problem. You snap open the paper and you restore it, and then you slowly just straighten it up as you let the audience applaud. Then you start counting the pages. You notice there's a missing piece. They laugh. You pick up the piece, and when you put it together, there's your second applause point. Ta-da. All right, number 7. Some of the best performers I know experience a lot of different entertainments. Well, they do. They go to comedy festivals. They go to variety shows. They attend theaters of all kinds, concerts, art fair, museums. They take it all in, and tiny elements of that find their way into their acts. Rudy talked about putting the things that you love most in the same room with your magic. Well, I think you can do that with outside things that you don't even know about. They'll work their way in. When we launched Magic Magazine, I did not look at other magic periodicals for inspiration. Rather, I wanted the photographs of Life magazine. I wanted the depth and sidebars of Time magazine. I wanted the human interest of People and the interviews of Playboy. Now, I won't say that we hit those, but they were and are my goals. If you only look to the magic community for inspiration, well, then the best you'll be is almost as good as the rest of the magic community. Experience as much of the world as possible and bring those experiences to your magic. All right, moving along, it's a combined point. Number 38, 39, and 40, all which deal with developing a stage act. All right, first, be able to transport your act from the car to the performance area in one trip. It makes life just so much simpler. Only use one table or stage prop per person in your act. It's cleaner and a lot more manageable to get the act on and off stage. And keep in mind that the word stage might be a dance floor, most often is a dance floor in the middle of the room. If possible, carry your own props on and off the stage. Billy McComb told me about working on a ship where his table was repeatedly set backwards. So after the second or third time, he went out, turned his back to the audience, and performed the multiplying bottles facing the band. Now, we all knew Billy, so he might just have done that. Now, Channing Pollock's act was designed to work nightclubs. He would walk on carrying the top hat and the cane into the table. His assistant would wheel on the cage, and everything she needed was on that cage. So she'd be just a little bit out of the spotlight. She didn't have to go anywhere. He would do the complete act. She would work back and forth from the cage. At the end of the act, she would come over and push the cage, pick up the table, which is the top hat and the cane, and walk totally off stage. Channing, meanwhile, would cover up the cage, lift it, come forward, vanish it, twirling the cloth, and walk off stage with nothing. The only thing left was the table where the cage was, and the assistant would later go out and retrieve that. The act could work almost anywhere, and isn't that the goal? And number 41 goes right with this. Design your act so that it plays as many places as possible. Think of all the work out there as a whole pie. If you can only work on a full stage with complete curtains and lighting, you've just taken a big piece out of the pie. If you require special lighting and special other staging, you've eliminated another piece out of the pie. And if you work off color, there goes another chunk. As the pie gets smaller, your opportunity to work also gets smaller, and that's not good. Number 10 is simply a question. Don't have an answer, just a question. Some magicians believe in saving their strongest effect for closing, going off on a high note. Others believe in hitting the audience with their best effect right up front, winning them over from the beginning. What do you think? Number 24. If you have to lower your established price to get the job, welcome to the new economy, then maybe you should take something away. If it's a 4-day trade show and the company doesn't have the same budget it did a few years ago, maybe you suggest to the client that they don't need you the 4th day. And they could save some money. Try to find ways that justify you working for less money without ruining your potential to return to the full price in the future. Number 35, tell the client what time you're going to arrive, which should be early enough to deal with any unknowns, and then arrive just a little bit earlier than that. Number 42, sound bites. If you're doing a pre-recorded interview for the news or a magazine-style television program, make your answers 6 to 8 seconds in length. Basically, you're talking in short sound bites. Do not stop talking until you know the entire answer in your head, even if you have to pause before each answer. They'll edit out the pauses, but they will not be able to chop your answers up. Also, find out what the subjects are to be covered in the interview as far out in advance as you possibly can so you can prepare your answers beforehand. Number 23, whenever possible, use props you would see in the real world. Cell phones, iPads, wireless remote, headsets, Max Maven, using the internet just now. Okay, these are all relatable. How about cut and restored headset cables? Person can hear, stop hearing, it's tied, they're back. These are objects that audiences can relate to. I saw a Sears catalog from almost 100 years ago. I was leafing through it, and they had a child's dollhouse in it. It looked just like the dollhouse you would find in illusion catalogs today, from 100 years ago. Back then, the prop looked normal when you used it. Today, it looks like a big magic box. Done. Number 5, mentoring. Chances are, at some point in your magical journey, you were encouraged by someone more experienced in this art. They probably were not a professional magician and possibly were not really a performer at all. Maybe they weren't even a good magician, but they were at the right place at the right time to help you get to the next level. I encourage you to reach out and mentor an upcoming magician. If you do, remember that mentoring is a balance of leading, following, and getting out of the way. And that's not a linear list. Your role is constantly changing between the three. So, lead, you follow, and know when to get out of the way. Number 34, leave them wanting more. I'm not talking about the length of your show. At the end of every job, you want the client to want you back. This was Marvin Roy's philosophy, and it worked pretty well, helped him stay working for over 50 years. Marvin wanted every place he worked to want him back. He's quick to add that there were many places he would never return to, but he still tried his best to leave them wanting him back there. Things are always changing. People who book you move from place to place. I did trade shows for 3 different corporations, and I worked for the same man, the director of marketing, each time as he moved from company to company. Dick Foster produced Spellbound shows and others at Knott's Berry Farm. After one particular show where the tech crew had butchered the cues, just butchered them, Dick called a meeting of the crew. The techs were waiting for an ear bashing from the producer, but he walked in and all he said was, "Gentlemen, I think we can do better. Let's do that." And he walked out. A young spotlight operator remembered that, and years later, when he became entertainment director of the park, he called Dick Foster and contracted him for another whole set of shows. Leave them wanting you back. It's important. Number 14, if you can't pass everything out for examination, don't pass anything out. In fact, maybe we shouldn't be passing anything out for examination at all, because it's inherent that by handing a prop out and say examine that it creates sort of a challenge almost, and it emphasizes the secret that we know and you don't know. Isn't it better to find a reason to have someone hold an object for you or give it to them after the fact as a souvenir? Also, if you use props from the real world, remember point number 39, then the audience will be less suspicious from the beginning anyway. You win. Number 29, don't you find that smart people ask a lot of questions? Not knowing isn't stupid. Not wanting to admit that you don't know, yeah, that's stupid. And number 3, question. When does the show begin? Answer, as soon as someone finds out you're a magician. So think about what image you want to make right from the get-go, right from the minute they find out. I saw a magician working in a restaurant, and as I walked out, I noticed a car parked right in the very first spot by the door. And the license plate had a magic theme to it, so I figured it was his. The car was, well, just above a junker, and there was trash littered all over the seats. It sure made me want to hire him for a party at my house next. Also, your outgoing message on your machine, your website, your entire image is selling you. All of that's working for you. But don't forget, what you put on a social internet site can affect your career. Be careful what you put out there. Number 27, selling is simply solving somebody's problem. Little story. When I was 25 years old, I auditioned to work for Princess Cruises. The audition was held at the Roosevelt Hotel in Hollywood at 9 a.m. in the morning. I got there a little early because I had asked if I could go on first, since I had another appointment that day. Okay, the appointment was lunch with a friend, but it was a long list of acts. I didn't want to get lost at the end. So, a few minutes after 9, I met Brian, the entertainment director, who asked me if I needed a stage. There was a small stage there, but it was filled with band equipment and a number of magic illusions. I asked where I would work on the ship. He said on the dance floor. So I said, fine, I'll do the audition on the dance floor. He asked me if I needed music. Well, there was a piano player, but she was surrounded by singers, all waving copies of Feelings. So I asked Brian if he could imagine a little play on music and a little play off music. I could probably give the piano player a break, and that one less act to worry about that day. So the next, he asked me then if I needed a microphone. I said I could work without a microphone since they were having a lot of trouble finding one. And he said, gee, that'd be great, and that I should let him know as soon as I was ready. He turned and walked away. I let him go about 2 or 3 steps. I don't know why. I was just feeling kind of cocky. I said, excuse me. Yeah, I'm ready. Well, my performance that day did not go great. The only people in the audience were other acts trying to get the same job, So response for a comedy magician was, at best, weak. At lunch, I told my friend that I would never get the job. That was on Monday. I sailed on Friday. There's no question that I got the job because I had adapted to the situation that morning. As long as we're talking about selling, number 24, don't oversell. There's nothing wrong with promoting yourself, making people aware of what you do. But I find that people in general do not like being sold. So get your name out there, give it a pitch, but then back off. One phrase I like is, I'd like to work your event if you think I fit your show. This gives them a graceful way out, and that's important. Besides, I don't fit every show, no one does. When somebody says no, be gracious and let it go. Do you really think that bugging them, or worse, arguing with them, will get you hired? I don't think so. And here's an extra bonus. I worked in the entertainment department of the Queen Mary in Long Beach for a few years. One of my jobs was to narrow down the enormous stack of brochures the attraction received every week. I found that I could cut the pile down quickly by looking for just one thing: repeat credits. If the act had worked for the same client a number of years, I figured they were worth taking a closer look at. It's easy to get booked once, but a good act will get asked back. Well, if you leave them wanting you back, see number 34. Number 11, do it for real. In the middle of the professor's nightmare routine, you have to count 3 pieces of rope and make them look like they're all the same length. If you want to find the most natural way to do this, cut 3 pieces of rope the same length and count them out a few different ways. Now, try and figure out a method to duplicate those counts using the gaffed ropes. Whatever the trick is, find the optimum handling without the gimmick, then try to make the gimmicked handling as close as possible. Finally, number 18. A lot has been said about being creative here today. My thing is just this: look at things differently. The sheet of paper, let me think this, the desk is underneath the sheet of paper. Think about things a lot, even concepts that you don't think are very good. Around our office, we're constantly saying, okay, this might not be a good idea, but let's spend a few minutes thinking about it before we move on. Sometimes good things develop. Experiment to find your own way. Remember that the one absolute in creative endeavors is that there are no absolutes. So think about lots of things, maybe some of these things. Thank you.
Lovely, lovely. Stan Allen. I wanted to say that the people on camera are having a great time, but there is a whole bunch of activity and people who really deserve some thanks, who are making everything work behind the scenes. You wouldn't believe how hard they work, how dedicated they are, and how insanely competent Luis and his team are. And one of the ways that you at home can thank them is by sending us pictures of you enjoying this conference. Let us see your setup. Let us see if you have friends around you. Let us see how you're watching it. We got a lot of those pictures last year, and the people who are putting this on really like seeing that, and it would be a nice way to thank the people who really deserve some thanks. And from our group in the room, could we give them a little bit of love? Yes? Excellent. It's always a pleasure to watch and listen to this next gentleman. He's one of my favorite magicians. Please welcome Danny D'Ortiz.
Ay, ay, ay. Okay, I try speaking English. I try. But first, Eva, can you help me?
Yes.
Tell me, I do a trick for later the theory, okay? Can you tell me stop? And now tell me how many, 1, 2, 3, or 4?
3.
3, okay, I put 4.
Okay.
It's my trick.
Okay.
It's because I need 4, okay? Can you close a little me, please? Yes. Close more. And now, Christian, and now, no, it's a joke, now it's real. I put car and you tell me stop.
Stop.
Here? Yeah. I don't understand why, but look. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. You can tell me stop before or later, yes? But you tell me stop exactly on the 10 cars. If here have 10 cars, I don't know how, I don't know why, these 4 cars is exactly 110, 210, 310, and 410s. Ta-da! I don't know how. Okay, I know a little. Can you tell me stop very quick?
Stop.
This is not very quick. This is very, 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 very quick.
Okay.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I don't care. It's your life. I don't care. Okay. Look, I don't understand how, but you tell me stop exactly here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. If now I have 7 cards on tables, then this 4 card is
7.
1 7, 2 7, 3 7, and 4 7s. Can you look at this card? Do you like this card or this card or this card? You have any card? Either one card in your mind? Wow. Can you shuffle? Pum, pum. Ta, 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 ta. Ta, ta, ta. And this is inside, okay? Now, Christian, can you think in any country? Any country or any name or any object, or do you think what you want? Okay. Only think. Okay. Are you thinking something? Yes. Do you have one card in your mind?
Yep.
Think in your card. Ta, 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 ta. And you spill one by one card for every letter. Okay. What do you thinking? For example, are you thinking a chair? You spill, blah, 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 okay? Okay. Come on. Ta, 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 ta. Your card is black.
Yes.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, and now, can you put the deck on? And now, can you tell me what's your card for the first time?
Queen of clubs.
Queen? Clubs?
Yes.
Oof. Oof. I don't know how. Only lucky, only lucky. More. I put card here and you tell me stop again.
Okay, stop.
Take the card. Ta, 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 ta. Look and show the card. I don't want to see the card, yes? And put back the card. Put back the card. Ta, 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 ta. And now, thinking any number, but hide, difficult, between 1 and 20 maybe. Hide the number, difficult number. Tell me the number.
17.
Ta, 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 ta. And tell me what's your card.
3 of spades.
3 of spades.
I think.
And the number is 3 of spades. Good. And the number?
17.
Count.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16.
And this is 17. 3 of spades?
I think so.
And now is the 7. Ta-da! I failed. Is the 3 of spades? I don't know where is the 3 of spades. Ta-da-ta-ta-ta-ta. Okay, I improvise something. No problem. Ta-da-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta-ta. Look, now with the 3 of spades, okay? Tell me, no, it's a force. Only when you want. Tell me stop.
Stop.
And here, exactly now, yes, 3 of spades. Ta-da-ta. Oh, 7 again. Oh, yes, 3 of spades. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Big applause. Ta-da-ta-ta-ta-ta. Yes, you help me. Are you here for help me, okay? Now, I speak about something that is my fascination, is to play with the time, because I think, of course, the magician play or handle with the situation. The magician make a situation, but also the magician make the spectators. It's true. I think it's true. The mission of the magician is to make the spectator. René Lamont, for example, he needs a style of a spectator. No, Arturo Dascani from Spain, he needs a style of a spectator. But Juan Tamariz is my very good friend at my school. He make the spectators. And it's what I try, what I think the magician needs to try to do. Because I prepare to the spectator for he answer what I want. But not only a psychology force. No. All situations. All situations. What he need to do, what he need to tell me, all. The magician need to handle it all. And I do some tricks for explain the theory, okay? For example, what trick I start with? I forget. This is the important. The whole thing, sir. The whole thing, sir. Okay. This is the psychology force, okay? I think it's very easy to force the spectator a number. It's very easy. It's a force. He tells me the number that I want, but it's my file is my error because I don't put the card in the position. The easy way I do, the difficult way, no, okay. When you ask to any spectator for one number, when the spectator think, I think the even numbers is more important than the odd numbers. Okay, the even number is more important than the odd number when you are thinking. Okay, 2 is more important than 1. 4 is more important than 3. 4 is more important than 1. But also 6 is more important than 4. Psychology, okay, I think. But also a bigger number is more important than a smaller number. Thank you to the Mooney, we are, okay, I think. The number 10 is more important than the number 8, but the number 8 is more important than the number 6, okay? And also, have some number that commands your attention. For example, if you think in one number between 1 and 10, the number 8 is to me, because it's the more important number. Also, in my question, when I tell him, can you think in any number? What I do is to handle it to force the numbers. What I do that? How I do that? I tell you, thinking any number, step 1. But between 1 and 20, step 2, I tell him how I need the number, not how they need. Okay, how I need it. But why I tell him between 1 and 20? Because I need a difficult number. And he thinks, okay, a difficult number, height, and between 1 and 20, always, or the 70% is number 18. Always. If no it's the 18, for me not important because she tell me the 17 or the 19. But never she tell me the 12 or 30. If I want more sure, I tell, okay, thinking many number between 1 and 20, height, difficult. No 8 or 9, difficult. Now she think, okay, from 10 to 20. But I ask from 1 to 20. But later I tell you, no smaller, no 8 or 9 are difficult. And always she tell me what I want. Okay? This is a force, because she don't tell me 100% the number that I need, but it's an estimate force. And for me, it's very good because what I do is to put the car in the 18 positions. And for the magician, this is unbelievable. The magician thinks, how will he do that? Because the mind of the magician thinking, when he puts 17 cards on top, never. I only pass 1 card from top to bottom. Understand more or less? This is how you handle it to the spectator. But now I explain how you can handle the situations. Okay? For example, I'm sorry, I forget one trick. Can you help me again? Do you have a deck, Christian, with you? Yes. I can use your deck? Yeah. Shuffle, please. Thank you, Eva. I'm sorry, I forget to do one trick before. Shuffle again. You don't shuffle? Shuffle more, it's okay? It's okay, so? Okay, it's okay, it's your life. Or so, better if the spectator can see. Then a square. Leonard, go from inside me. Okay, now. Very, very easy. Look. I shuffle a little more. Okay. Do you want cut?
Yes.
Okay, cut. I change the text. Why not? Okay, all is possible. All is possible. Do you want shuffle a little more? Do you want shuffle a little more? Why not? Why not? It's okay? Yeah. Do you want a square? Do you want a square?
Yes.
Why not? Why not? Okay. And now, Chris, can you, how it's in English? I don't know, lanzar?
Throw?
Can you throw any card? Any card is possible. In the middle of the deck, more or less. No, okay, in the middle of the deck. You can help you with your other hand. Okay, more or less you know how many cards is here?
Yes.
No important. More. No important. Okay. No important. Now, do you want to shuffle a little more?
Sure.
Oh, why not? Shit. Okay.
Okay, I won't.
No, come on, shuffle. It's okay, it's okay. Now, yeah, it's okay. Yeah, why not? Can you take any card?
This one.
Okay, and show the card. I don't look at the card, okay? Put back. You see the card?
Yeah.
Okay, I can shuffle a little. I don't want. I can cut. Why not? Okay? Look. I know the deck is a Spanish deck. I know because I see the back, but I don't know the face of the cards. You give me the deck, I never see the face. Not necessary for me because the magic is done. Okay. Can you turn for first time the top card of every pile? This is ace plus 12. 13. 13. Can you tell me what's your card?
My card?
Yes.
2 of spades.
2 of spades. 13. 2 of spades. Count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and the number 13 is exactly 2 of spades. Is your card? Great. Now yes. Now yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. This is very easy. This is only a self-working trick, only for explain the theory, okay? If I don't use the psychology, not the psychology, the presentation, if I don't know me, this trick is very evident. Evident? It's very easy to know and to understand how it's possible. But I need to know me because I am more important than my technique. Always I say the same. The magician is 2 years practicing the best technique, the second deal, the best technique. Look, ta, 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 ta. But he forget to practice himself. This is the best arma, the best
weapon
that you can to have, okay, I think. And this is an example of how you can do magic with your body or with your situations, with your control of the situation, okay? How I do that? I give the deck, and I tell, okay, can you shuffle? Okay, shuffle, 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 and you shuffle, 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 shuffle. When I tell shuffle, 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 I look to him and I tell him, okay, shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. Like in this moment, I don't look in her, he finished to shuffle, but he not, because I seeing him. It's okay? Yep. Now I sit there again, because I need to know what is the 2 bottom cards. I need to know what is the 2 bottom cards. How I do that? I do. No, but you also shuffle, shuffle, shuffle. And I see the jack and the clubs. And I put in the bottom, okay? Now, I need to have the control of the 2 top cards. To have that, after the shuffle, what I do is to cut. But when I cut, this pile is bigger. Thank you to this, when the spectator shuffle, always this pile finish. Always. If don't finish, no problem, because you can tell, okay, it's a very good shuffle. Yes? Why not? One friend might tell me, ¿cómo es acostumbrado?
When you're accustomed, used to. Yeah.
When you're accustomed?
When you're used to.
When you're used to, y mentir, to lie.
To lie.
To lie. Like the magician lie constantly, a lot of. He needs to justify all. Why? No necessary. If I need to pass 1 card from the top to the middle, I pass 1 card from the top to the middle. Why I tell you, okay, but maybe... It's okay? I think so, I think so. And the spectator can to see me very despreoccupation, no is important. If for me no is important, then it's because no is important. Okay? And now I know the 2 top cards. It's Jack and 5. This is 16. I know the number 16. Ta 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 ta. Now I change the packets. I shuffle again, I cut again, he can shuffle again, it's a bigger pile, it's always the same. And now I know what is the 2 top cards. Now I tell him, okay, can you throw any card? It's important to say any cards. And when I say any card, I move the top cards. Because if I don't move the top card, this card is important. If I tell you, okay, can you throw any card? Oh, this is important card. Because no have this preoccupation here. Okay, but is, can you throw any card? Come on. This is any card. Okay? Okay? Is, can you throw any card? Come on, any card. Because the spectator, the important is what the spectator feel, not what the spectator see. If this guy is important, the spectator think, okay, the magician don't give the card because maybe I can see the face. If my face is this preoccupation, this is not important. If this is not important, the spectator don't think in this. Okay? Is, can you throw the card? Okay? Any part. Okay, very good. And now, The attention, the focus is where he put the card. This is the attention, because if he do these actions, in this case is to throw the card, the spectator is waiting what happened with this action. But for me, no, it's important the spectator remind the card. For me, this is not important. Then I only do a question, and I tell you, do you know how many cards here? This is very far now. Do you know how many cards here? No important. How no important? The spectator now no understand nothing. But important for me is the spectator forget this card. This is the important. Know how many cards here. This is not important for me. The important is the spectator forget this card. When he threw the card, I put the attention here, and now I destroy the attention. Is do you know how many cards here? No important. What? And now I go to this spectator. Okay? But I know the number. The number is 16. And now I need to force the 16 cards. I need to force the 16 cards. What I do? Shit, I have 15 cards in my pocket, and later I put, oh no, too much. Maybe I count with my pinky 15 cards? No. What I do? Because I need the spectator take any card and put in the number or in the position 16. What I do? I count. Yeah. I count, and I tell you. Now I do, and you can listen to me. Can you take any card? 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Show the card. 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Put back the card. Why not? Why not? Not necessary for me, I think, for the magician, to practice every day, 8 hours every day, the second deal, or the... No, 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 no. You can use yourself. For me, it's more important, okay? And now, all is done. The card is in the position. Because this is very good force. It's the 2 top cards before. And now, the last thing. If I tell you, can you turn the top card of every pile, please? If I don't tell him nothing, the spectator can to rewind and can to think, oh, from where this can maybe is that maybe it's the top cards. Then, what I do now for occupate your brain is to ask a question. And I tell you, can you turn the top cards of every pile? This is Jack is 11, yes, plus, and the spectator is waiting, plus what? Plus what? And now I'm plus 5. This is, and this is a general question. All spectator is thinking 16. And now he's thinking, oh, from where can these 2 cards? Now it's 16. And now it's very late, the spectator rewind. Because now I mark the final situation. I play now with expectations. And I tell, 16, okay, wow. When I look this deck, the people are thinking, no. Because the people know what's happened now. Not necessarily I tell you, okay, 16, then you remember you got in the 16. No, 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 no. Okay, ta-ta-ta plus this is 16. No. Try. Shit. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, blah, 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 and 16. Okay? And this is the trick, and this is the theory, and this is my part. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you, please.
Fabulous. Danny Ortiz, one more time, please. From the sublime Spanish school to the insane green school. What a great kind of back-to-back this is, because some similarities and some really major differences, and I think this will be a nice contrast and comparison in card magic. Please welcome my friend and another of my favorite magicians to watch, Leonard Green.
Thank you. good evening. A long story, and I have to compress it in 5 minutes. Many years ago, many hundred years ago, in Ireland, you know about not the dwarf, no, the other guys. Paul Daniel. Not magician, you know the, what is the Irish name of these guys? Druids. Yeah, good. Suddenly, lots of girls just disappeared. About 100 girls disappeared. And everyone put the blame on the Druids. And in the big castle, the big black castle, there were 8 Druids. And the girl was taken there and in a course kind of thing. And they have to cook, clean, daytime, nighttime. I will not talk about that. But anyway, lots of guys tried to break the curse, and they failed. And but one guy, his girl was Isolde. So now that was a story, but I'll do it quick. Okay. So he came, and he was sitting there, and now to the test. If he could, 8 druids, and the druid took some cards and put them here. And then they said, okay, we'll show you this quick. Yeah, he had very good eyes, so and a good memory. Now you will find this order in this deck. So he starts to peek. Unfortunately, they gave him, on purpose, I think, a very slippery deck. But he had a good... so, and he calculates. This is my latest passion, the power of pattern. Yeah. Yes. Yeah, I think I have it. Yeah, good. Good. No, sorry. Here. Yeah. Yeah, peeking all the time, yes. Ah, great. Perfect. Yes. Excellent. Yeah, now. Spade, okay. No, spade, sorry, my fault. Yeah, who else? Okay, good. Ah, good. This is not Tamaris, this is Leonardo. Yeah. 3. Yeah, and the druids, they were a little impressed, yes? So, okay. Then they offered him a big bowl with lots of symbols. And he said, pick one. He took, and he got a cross. So he put in a symmetric way across like this. And now he had to release all the girls just to find the special poem, the mystical poem that break the curse. Yeah. 8 druids. 8 druid king. We can say 8 king, 3, 10, 2 save, 95 ladies, 4, 1 sick knight. Okay, impressed. But then he gave another ball. Take another. He took the cross again. And now that was critical, because now he should release and destroy the big castle at the same time. So he did exactly the same cross, symmetrical. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now the girl was coming. Yeah, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Jack, Queen, King. Excellent. No reaction. Maybe. Okay. And after that, he found his Isolde. The first girl. Yeah. And yes. And they walked away. Bye. Impressed? Very good. Thank you. The power of pattern. Yes.
I assume that's the end of the story when Danny took you off. Yes. Leonard Green, ladies and gentlemen. There he is.
Okay. Thank you.
The trick was fantastic. I have no idea what he was talking about. Something with druids and a girl who came out. It was Danny d'Ortiz, and there was the breaking of a curse with the mystical poem, and the cross was chosen twice, and fantastic. We are coming towards the end of this third session. It's been good, really great, actually, and it's been fun to be here. I can't think of a better way to close it out. I mean, I know there's going to be questions after, and I hope you have written in some great questions from home. But for the final presenters, I can't think of a better way than Chris Power and JJ.
In 1938, Frank Chapman said the following: "It takes a great deal of boldness and a vast amount of caution to launch a monthly magic publication. And it takes a great deal of wit to keep it going." He published Chap's scrapbook.
In 1986, we were hanging around at a magic convention, otherwise you might get confused, looking around and saying, "This is boring. Let's start a magic magazine." We produced Opus. Opus was to be an antidote to the bland magical reporting of the day. There was a saying going around in those days that if you couldn't say something nice about an act or a show, then there was no point in saying anything at all. Opus did not agree.
Opus was Ian Keeble, me, David Britland and JJ. Ian wanted to write about magic. I like doing drawings. David knew lots of stuff. And JJ was very good at putting things in envelopes. Each magazine was to feature a major article or review, an interview perhaps, a report on a convention or live event, reviews also of books past and present. And there was a gossip column called Click Click, which was meant to be the sound a camera makes when the paparazzi are clicking you while you're trying to hide.
Now, while not being a tricks magazine as such, Opus did publish some routines and tricks supplied by their contributors. And the unique feature of all these tricks and routines were that each one was actually done by the person that was giving it to us. It wasn't a pie in the sky routine that someone had thought of. it was working material. Indeed, in the issue of the very first, in the first issue of the first volume, the statement was read out. Opus's aim is that it should be designed to be a magazine that we ourselves would like to read, look at, and maybe learn from. We hoped that the readers would feel the same. It's you.
Sorry.
It's you. What have you got there?
It's Amateur Magician's Handbook.
By Henry Hare?
Yeah.
Where'd you get that?
It's a big room with books around the corner.
I don't think you're meant to have that.
Our first issue came off the press in 1987 at Harrogate IBM in the UK, and it proved a great success. Here you see some of the cover images that we had for the first issue. Not great resolution, but you can see Wayne Dobson was there, microphone thing, little white squares. Perfect. Essence of design. The launch was successful, and we took enough money in the first year to have subscriptions in the first year to publish the magazine for a whole year. The contributors for the tricks and the interviews were very great. We had Gordon Bruce, Roy Walton, David Williamson, Otto Wesley, John Kennedy, Wayne Dobson, Davide Costi, and nothing from Nicholas. Nick Nicholas?
Nothing for Nick Nicholas?
No, nothing at all.
No, never mind.
We had enough to take a stand at FISM at Den Haag in 1988. And also, while we were there, we were going to sell subscriptions, back issues, and gather material for the Volume 2. I had a video camera with me, and I would wander around asking people if they would like to contribute. I'd film them, and it was very easy for me to take back to London and then do the illustrations from the video recordings.
Now, it's all very well and good to have a policy of honest reporting about acts you think are really bad. But they always run the risk of coming to meet them face to face somewhere. I was sitting behind the stand at FISM in 1988 Den Haag when I noticed an up-and-coming magician approaching the stand. I had just written the following review of his act. Excuse me. As to whether I ever see the next act again is a matter of supreme indifference to me. Never have I ever experienced a man so in love with himself as this act. I could not bear to watch it all, but I understand later on he actually used the line, "Your name is what we call our dog." And here he was at our stand. What's this? It's a magic magazine. It looks interesting. Can I subscribe? Yes. No problems yet. Have you got back issues? Dangerous ground here. Yes. Okay, I will subscribe and buy all the back issues. Before I could take his money, I had to tell him, you must know that we have written a slightly negative review of your work. Me? Really? May I see it? Yes. He read it. He reached into his pocket, brought out his checkbook, subscribes and buys all the back issues. Fair play to Joe Libera.
I saw Eugene Berger marching towards the stand, muttering darkly. What is this opus? Where is the editor? I turned to point to Ian. He'd gone. But I had a ploy for this, a tactic that was very effective. I just looked at Eugene and said, "I just draw the pictures, nothing to do with me," and strolled off. Ian stepped down after FISM to pursue a career as a professional magician, but we decided to carry on, soldier on.
You've lost your place, haven't you?
I have, yeah. I'll admit it freely.
Furby's working away there, you can see it.
Oh, there's that there, I see. That's what it is. We were confident Opus had a future, so we soldiered on. JJ became editor and still stuffed things in envelopes. I still drew pictures, and David Britton wrote loads of stuff. Just waiting for it to catch up.
Okay.
For the second volume, I was playing around with the designs. One of the big influences on Opus magazine for me was the work of Eric Mason and Pabula magazine. He was a great artist and a great musician, and he was a big influence on the look of the magazine. That's the cover of Pabula there, and that's Eric performing in Madrid. I think the magazine, I call it a magazine, but it was driven more by the sort of world of the fanzine for me. That is something that was self-published and was had an enthusiasm for a sort of specialist subject. And Eric was certainly an influence on the whole thing, the look of it. Here's some illustrations from Opus magazine and some layouts I was playing with at the time, and also some favourite covers of mine. One of them at the end is Di Vernon, who you'll see. That'll flash up in the background.
Didn't really write stuff for that bit, did we?
No, not really.
Just made it up. As Opus became more established amongst a small but impressive group of the magic world, the contributors to the Magic magazine grew. The second volume had kind of offerings from people such as David Williamson, Leonard Green, Roberto Jobby, Albert Joshman, No Nick Nicholas, and other people. Excuse me a moment. In those days, if you wanted your views published out there, you had to go to a magazine. You had to send them in to someone who was going out and putting them up. Nowadays, of course, you just put them on your blog or in a forum. We dealt with the real world as it was in those days, and here we actually have found a letter from Max Maven that he typed out from Hollywood, put in an envelope and sent to us. And that's in our magazine.
An indication of the growing readership of our magazine came when Richard Kaufman published Williamson's Wonders. On the back of the book, Exhibit A, was an excerpt in its entirety from a magazine called Who is David Williamson? It's hard to believe now that we would even ask that question. Exhibit B. This article was written by JJ in his column Tales from the Wagon. Tales from the Wagon?
The series called Tales from the Wagon comes from the fact that I have a motorhome, a van you live in. I believe in America they're called RVs. And it was this vehicle, plus a close association with the Ron Macmillan family at the International Magic in London, that Chris and I were able to tour Europe and attend all the conventions. We transported the company's stock to the conventions, and it paid our costs.
It wasn't just Europe. One day we woke up and found ourselves in Hollywood, where my older brother had escaped to seek fame and fortune in Hollywood. I had never seen him again. This was our first trip to Hollywood, and we went to the Magic Castle. We were lecturing, and we were met by Billy McComb, who was a subscriber. And he warned us that someone was coming for us because they had a problem with one of the articles. But he... Sorry. Thank you so much. But Billy was a lovely man, and he was looking after us, and he was a subscriber for Opus. And we were interested in how much the readership had spread, because there was a fine tradition in those days of little bootleg copies going around. And he'd even given Di Vernon some issues to read, and one of the great treasures from the Opus archive was this quote, which you will see coming up in a moment. The story behind this was Di Vernon had written this but torn it up because he thought his handwriting was too shaky and he was ashamed of it. Luckily for us, he actually stole the pieces out, taped them all together, and it's one of the things that it's a nice quote from Opus.
And it will be there in due course.
There it is, all torn up in the envelope.
Told you.
And the quote, just in case you can't read it, it's just there. And that's a real sweet thing to get. I think we all agree.
this was why we worked so hard. Sorry. This is why we worked for such a long time and took so much trouble in keeping Opus magazine going. We got, seriously, support and encouragement from the worldwide range of magicians. A couple of quotes. It's writing like this that makes Opus my magazine of choice. Mike Caveney. Opus makes me think about magic. That has great value. Max Maven. I have always liked Opus because it dared to be different. The great guru of gurus from Scotland, Roy Walton. Frankly, I loved the fact that people came up and told us stuff. I was surprised how many people actually cared what we thought about their work. But I really, really, really enjoyed sitting down and talking to huge stars. I'm a great magic groupie. And how generous these stars were to give us their time for our main articles. Me, JJ, hanging out with people like Mike Caveney and Tina Leonard at their house, Larry Parker, Leonard Green, Franz Harari, many, many more. And for goodness sake, the legend Channing Pollock with Channing. The advantages, I think, of giving what you might call negative reviews is that when we gave positive reviews, they had a sort of balance and more worth. If everything was just good, then nothing.
That's JJ, by the way, in the jumper, in case you couldn't quite. We love being lifted by watching great performances of magic, and Opus gave us the ability to see those, and giving them praise, it meant something because we had given sort of honest kind of reviews. Right. Leonard Green, when we saw him, was an unknown person we spotted in a bar at a magic convention in London. The readers, we'd never really seen him. So it's a great joy to tell everybody about that. An amazing original act. Well, as you've just seen, druids and everything like that.
Didn't know those then.
No. And after impromptu performance in San Vincent in Italy, well, JJ wrote about David Williamson. I remember staying up all night sort of talking about the amazing things we'd seen.
We're running a bit late. Should we cut some stuff out?
Yeah.
Should we cut it out?
No, you go for...
Just do the whole lot?
Yeah, go
for
it.
Okay. Lewis is going to be very upset. People like Vito Lupo, Alexander de Kobe, Rudy Kobe, Vanni Bossi, David Costi, Tina Leonard, and many others became huge favourites of Opus. We just loved their stuff. And producing Opus, publishing it, led to many things, new friends, worldwide travel, and an opportunity to produce our own international magic convention. Martin Breeze, an Opus subscriber and friend, had helped us by introducing us to a guy from the Isle of Man, Philip Phillips. This gentleman, Philip, had wanted to start some sort of magic event on the Isle of Man. We weren't particularly interested. But eventually, we were persuaded to go out to the island.
We reluctantly flew over to the island, anticipating being asked to put on an event in a sort of church hall, quite small scale. Our expectations grew when we were actually picked up at the airport by a chauffeur-driven limousine and taken to the Palace Hotel and Casino. There we were met by the manager, who took us to our rooms, and very shortly after that, Philip picked us up again and took us to a very plush restaurant. The people around the table were the local television station, the bank, the tourist board, and so we sort of starting to think, well, maybe this is a little bit more. We were discussing about what we could do. It was a great opportunity to use everything that we built up by doing Opus magazine to sort of build a little convention. So it's this kind of escalation from publishing a magazine. We discussed about how we could get people to the island, what do you think we should do? And we said, well, one of the things that's quite popular is we have a magic convention and we have a big cash prize. The largest prize at that time was £1,000, and they said, what about £5,000? Said, that'll do.
Well wined and dined, we returned to the hotel where Phil Phillips took us into the casino, of which he was the managing director. As we sat in the VIP area and we drank our champagne, he called over the casino manager and said, these guys are here for the weekend. While they're in this casino, they don't pay for a thing. As we wandered back to our rooms slightly groggily, Chris turned to me in a way that only he could. And he said,
JJ, it looks as though by the merest quirk of fate, we have managed to land in a big bucket of cash. All this happened because we were Opus magazine.
And at the risk of really angering the organisation any more than we have all done it already by overrunning, I simply cannot miss this story, and it's a quick one. Chris and I are sitting behind a stand in the IBM at some UK convention, and we're just sort of hanging out, and a young-looking guy turns up at the stand and starts browsing through the magazines. What's this, he asks. An independent magic magazine we publish, but it doesn't have much children's magic in it. Well, that's okay. I don't do children's magic. Okay, what sort of magic do you do, kid? I do television magic. Yeah, right. We carried on ignoring him. He stayed, he subscribed, and every time I stuck that label on that envelope, I remembered him. Luis de Matos from Portugal. Don't do kids' magic. I tell you.
I think if we started now, we would have used the internet and everything that could have to offer. And of course, we'd be up against much more competition because there's so many people on the internet now. But I think if you've got a unique voice or things to say, people will listen. It would be interesting. The key thing for us is virtual or real. I think there's a place for both. And it's wonderful that with EMC, Ask Alexander and the Conjuring Arts Research Centre, Opus is finally going to be out there in the digital world. But if we were doing it again today, and who knows, maybe we will, we would still want this old-style paper thingy in the mix. It exists as an object. It has weight, texture, and it doesn't get a virus, and it doesn't vanish. It is Opus.
Thanks for your attention.
Lovely, lovely. Chris and JJ, Opus Magazine. So now we have a few minutes before this session wraps up, and we have collected some questions from our home audience that I will now ask to some of the presenters that were on this session, which means you all have to wake up. Not that you were sleeping during that. You have to pay attention is what I mean. Let's start with Apollo Robbins. Where are you? So there you are. I'm going to start with this question from the home viewers. How do you practice pickpocketing? Do you use a mannequin, a friend, or do you just go out and do it? And I want to add that if I were you and working on sticking my hands into people's clothing, I would practice on Ava. But I'm sure you have an actual practical and real answer for our home viewers. How do you practice pickpocketing?
I think Ava would be practicing on me, probably. She's been taking my wallet for a while. I think it depends on if you're asking, the purpose of your question is geared because you want to know for yourself or for me. Now, at this point in my career, I generally don't practice. I just go out and try new ideas. Because in the balance between technique and trying to practice gearing attention, it's more important to me to keep my skills with manipulating attention sharp. So that's where I spend most of my time, is just trying to do it as much as possible and trying to find areas where I can pickpocket. For someone that was getting started, I would say you need to develop the techniques so that you don't have to consciously think about them. You want to be able to put that on the back burner and not to have that using up your resources when you're already in a situation where you got to be inside someone else's head. So in that sense, it would help to have someone else. And ironically, it would be better to have them practice on you so you know what it feels like rather than you practice on them. Because you'll be able to correct the sensations when you feel them attempting, no matter that they don't need to know the techniques, but you'll be able to feel what you don't want to have done.
Very good. We turn now to Topaz. Where are you at? Hello, Topaz. I think this is an interesting question from somebody. Why do you feel the object might need to be valuable? In one of your lists, you said the object, you had that list of qualities. Why would valuable be a quality of desire?
Well, simply because it's more interesting. Imagine we would produce pieces of dirt or used napkins. Certainly, there's it's very hard to motivate that anybody with real magical skills would want to have that, would want to make it appear. If it's valuable, let's think of Pierre Brama's jewelry act on stage, which was very successful at FISM. It's a perfect example, like every miser stream, that making a valuable piece, valuable object appear is just more interesting.
Good. Question for Danny D'Ortiz. Your microphone on? Danny, how do you practice psychological tricks and forces without an audience?
Because I do magic every minute. And I try to understand how the spectator answers you, but not answer you with the voice, answer you how the spectator is thinking every moment. I think this is the more important. If you do magic for the spectator, you need to know how the spectator works.
I'm okay. Thank you. So that just about takes us to the end of this session. We have time for one more question. I think there's a question in the room. Hit me.
Is my microphone working?
Yes.
Yes. It's not a question I have. It's a question I saw someone submit online. It's for Apollo, down the row here. It's a question by Josh Januski. And his post, he posted this several days ago, and I promised him that I would try to have it answered if possible. He said, you often recommend people try to learn pocketing before they learn pickpocketing. So he was asking, do you have any specific resources, books or otherwise, you would recommend for learning something of that sort?
Right now, I think the best book that's out there for learning pickpocketing is probably Ricky Dunn's book. And so if you go for between that and Jimmy Ravel's book, I think you got a good start.
Beautiful.
And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, we come to the end of session 3 and day 1. Thank you so much for joining us. We're going to go have a little bit of food, and we'll see you all tomorrow. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. Let them eat cake. Good night. We'll see you tomorrow. My people.